the Executive Director of Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center, ABIOLA Akiyode-AFOLABI, joins us now in the studio. Thank you so much for joining us on Newsnight. You were at that protest ground earlier today and you were asking for explanation. You wanted the lawmakers to come out to explain to you. First, let me ask you, did you get any?
Well, we had about, I think the leadership of the Senate sent a delegation to the women to have a conversation with them, but we refused because our demand is very clear. We wanted the Senate President to come by himself to make that explanation. So what we did was to send the message back to the Senate President that we thank him and we respect those he sent. There were about 5 of them who were all distinguished senators. But we would like to see the Senate President himself to be able to make a decision on the way forward.
Well, I wonder what you think the implications are for the National Assembly rejecting these gender bills. And Paul Ntalin, the Minister of Women Affairs, talks about a need to re-strategize against 2023. What kind of strategy are you talking about? I mean, you always remind one of the About Women's Riot.
Well, we are going to continue to occupy the National Assembly until we get a good response from the National Assembly. There's nothing.
What kind of response, really?
Well, there's nothing that is cast in stone. For goodness sake, the Electoral Act was taken away to the President. They returned it. They sat on it again, amended it, added consensus, and other things to it, and then sent it back to him. So they might say in their tradition they have not had a situation where they had to go back and look at their, bills for the Constitution again. But we are insisting. We're over 50% of the country. And we must have a say in the way that the country should treat its people. A constitution is the aspiration of the Nigerian people. It's not just for a section of people. So our point is that we need to have that conversation. We've gone through this several times. Since 1999 up till now, we have had constitutional reform processes almost like 4 or 5 times.
5 times.
And at that different times, we get to this level. And we made this brick wall because of the patriarchal system that we are following and the kind of people that we have in the National Assembly. And they push back. And then we start all over again.
So what do you think?
And it takes us another 10 years.
I mean, what exactly is the fundamental problem here? Because, like you said, this has been years of advocacy, lobbying. We saw the First Lady and wife of the Vice President and Minister of Women Affairs for the first time in the history of plenary being on the floor just to advocate for these bills to pass, but that didn't even move the needle. It didn't help at all. All the bills were rejected. And for those who argue that additional seats for women will be expanding the already bloated governance structure of the country, let me give you the exact figures. If this bill for additional seats had gone through, it would have been 37 additional senators and 74 additional women reps member, bringing the total to 111 to the existing 469 seats. They argue this wouldn't have made any sense. What do you say to people like that?
Well, they need to understand the context. We didn't want 111 to be added to the existing 469. In other countries, Rwanda, Tunisia, some Scandinavian countries, what they will do is to appoint a particular quota and make it part of the constitution. The constitution of Uganda is very clear. It has a quota of 35% for a period of 20 years. After that 20 years, they can review and either drop it or continue with it. And that was what we put on their table. But they refused to agree for 35%. Even the 111 seats, they still have problems with it, not because of the number, but because they felt that women will become like super senators, because they didn't agree that there should be delineation of senatorial districts so that they can even have the 4th one. So the current Senate and National Assembly generally have actually put women in a very difficult situation. So it was like, if you can't release your seat, then create the women constituency seat.
Right, or is it a case of women being too naive, you know, and believing that the men understood that really the time has come for women to play an active role in politics? In 30 seconds, if you can.
I don't think it's about being naive.
Okay.
It's about negotiating.
All right, thank you very much.
And unfortunately, it didn't work.
Yeah, Dr. Abiola Akiyode-Afolabi, Executive Director, Women Advocates Research and Documentation Center. Thank you very much for joining us.